Following a harrowing ordeal, a woman plunges into a downward spiral of reckless behavior, pushing away those who care for her. Claire offers Issa a lift home after their singing lesson, but Issa declines, prompting Claire to inquire anxiously about her boyfriend Fred. Learning he hasn't responded, Claire reassures Issa that Fred isn't worth the worry. Riding her scooter home, Claire is suddenly abducted by two men who forcefully drag her into their car. The driver blasts music to drown out her cries as they declare their intentions to assault her. They drive to a park and argue, during which Claire seizes a moment of hesitation to flee, only to be caught again. After the assault, they discard Claire from the car. Traumatized, she seeks refuge in a nearby car with a sleeping driver, pleading for help. However, the driver, upon learning of her attack, instructs her to enter the vehicle and drives off. While en route, Claire discovers her camera missing from her bag. Frustrated, when the driver attempts to comfort her, she recoils and issues a threat. Distrusting the man, she opts to walk the remainder of the journey home instead. Once there, she retreats to the shower, sitting in despair. The following morning, she quietly attends her classes and turns down her friend's offer to grab lunch together. Instead, she meets up with her brother, Marty, who introduces her to his friend and business partner, Paul. Over lunch, the trio discusses the details of the men's new courier venture. Marty inquires about borrowing her scooter, but she claims it was stolen. Despite his suggestion to report it, she brushes it off, citing worse experiences. Marty, puzzled, leaves to settle the bill with Claire and Paul alone. She gives an pointed look, indirectly warning him not to deceive her brother. With a chuckle, he insists on his honesty. Upon Marty's return, she abruptly announces her decision to quit school, citing frustration. Marty protests, mentioning their mother's disapproval, but she coldly responds that she's deceased anyway. Irritated by her attitude, Marty scoffs and exits. After lunch, Claire heads to the clinic for a blood test. Later that evening, she attends an office party where her coworker Louis expresses gratitude for their collaboration and attempts to extend friendly gestures. However, she accuses him of ulterior motives, storming off in response. Upon arriving home, Claire bitterly begins packing her belongings to leave, but pauses when she catches sight of her mother's photograph. She tenderly kisses it, longing for the sense of security and comfort her mother provided. Feeling increasingly unsafe in her apartment, Claire rents a new room the following day, finally finding some respite in sleep. However, her rest is shattered by a nightmare in which one of her attackers drags her into a swamp, threatening to drown her. Gasping awake as her face submerges, she rushes to switch on a radio to soothe her frayed nerves. Seeking solace, Claire spends the remainder of the night in a dance bar, where her attention is drawn to the bartender, Bruno. Hoping to reclaim a sense of control, she approaches him and soon finds herself engaged in a passionate encounter with him in the storage room. Midway through, she halts, expressing a deep yearning to be held and loved. Responding, Bruno mentions his empty home, and they agree to continue their intimacy there after his shift ends. At Bruno's place, they share a night of intense passion as Claire seeks to bury her trauma in physical connection, yet her efforts prove futile. Following their encounter, Bruno notices her distracted demeanor and attempts to inquire, but Claire deflects, asking him if he would resort to violence to survive. Concerned, Bruno probes further, prompting Claire to brush off his questions, which ultimately leads her to tears. Overwhelmed by emotions, Claire dresses and silently exits, apologizing to Bruno as she leaves, leaving her inner turmoil unresolved. Shortly thereafter, Claire encounters Fred at the gym and persuades him to join her for dinner. That evening, they head to a bar, engaging in conversation and catching up. Fred admits he hasn't reached out to Isa because he believes he's not the right fit for her. Claire dismisses this, cynical about men's behavior, and notices a woman across the bar giving her a familiar look. Following dinner, they proceed to a warehouse party, where Claire immerses herself in alcohol and loud music to numb her senses. As the night winds down, Fred guides her towards a friend's car, but Claire witnesses a man being assaulted. Despite her protests for help, she's ignored, leaving her feeling abandoned once again, much like her past experiences. The following day, Claire surprises her father at his restaurant, discussing her plans to quit school and pursue photography, much to his dismay. Despite his disapproval, she requests the use of his car for work, but he insists her scooter is sufficient, frustrating her further. Ignoring his invitation for lunch with him and Marty, Claire heads to work and interrupts her boss's meeting to demand a full-time position. Claire makes a bold declaration, revealing her financial struggles and decision to drop out of school, seeking assistance. However, her employer turns down her request, citing limitations in hiring a full team at the moment, prompting her to leave. Several days later, she meets Fred at a restaurant, noticing the same woman who had previously caught her eye. Claire identifies her as her neighbor Marie and joins her and Fred for drinks before heading to dinner with Marty and Paul. Later, amidst drinks, she shares a dance with her brother, finding solace in his affectionate embrace. As they return to their table, Fred arrives, prompting Claire to gather her belongings and invite her brother to join them at a club, which he declines. After their departure, Marty confides in disliking Fred, a sentiment shared by Paul. Claire and Fred proceed to the club, where Claire dons a red wig and playfully interacts with another woman before hitting the dance floor with her friend. Unbeknownst to them, Marty observes their actions. He confronts Claire in the midst of the dance floor, berating her for her perceived reckless behavior and attempting to intervene. However, bouncers swiftly intervene, escorting Marty out. Seeking solace, Claire retreats to the bathroom, only to be cornered by a menacing man who accuses her of inviting mistreatment. In a moment of fear, Fred intervenes, rescuing Claire from the confrontation. He admonishes her for not calling out for help, though Claire lies, claiming she had done so earlier that morning. The group spends time outside, noticing the somber demeanor of a sulking woman. Attempting to open up about a troubling incident involving her friend, Claire is met with a shift towards light-hearted conversation, prompting her to suppress her concerns. The following day, Claire is awakened by Essa at her door, who notes her habit of ignoring calls and discovers her unplugged landline. As Essa attempts to reconnect, she tries to engage with Claire, who remains dismissive and retreats to the bathroom. While bathing, Essa stumbles upon Claire's blood test results, revealing transmissible viruses, leading to a confrontation in which Claire deflects by claiming involvement with her ex-boyfriend. Issa departs in tears and crosses paths with Marty, confiding in him about Claire's hurtful words. Concerned, Marty rushes to Claire's door, knocking insistently and inquiring about the situation. Claire responds evasively and refuses to open the door. Frustrated, Marty forcefully enters the room, demanding an explanation. He drags her to the balcony in a desperate bid to coax her into speaking, but she deflects his concern, urging him to focus on his girlfriend instead. Growing increasingly desperate, Marty presents her with a significant sum of money intended for scooter purchases, proposing they use it to escape their troubles. Claire briefly entertains the idea before ultimately rejecting it, convinced he cannot aid her. Marty persists, embracing her tightly and urging her to confide in him. In a moment of vulnerability, Claire questions his unwavering love for her, but instead of opening up, she becomes agitated and pushes him away, demanding he leave. Reluctantly, Marty complies and departs, leaving Claire alone. However, he later tracks her down on the streets and convinces her to join him for lunch with their father. They convene at his restaurant, choosing to set aside their differences for the moment and enjoy a meal together, opting to avoid discussing weighty issues for the time being. Claire begins the conversation by informing her father that she's no longer attending school or working, but insists she's finding enjoyment in life. Her father expresses doubt, prompting Claire to remark that there's always a family member who doesn't quite fit in, yet reassures him that he still has Marty to be proud of. Days later, Claire finds herself in a parking lot, allowing a man to use her without any emotional investment. He departs silently afterward, leaving Claire alone until Marie arrives and encourages her to join her. Despite Claire's initial lack of response, Marie takes charge and guides her into the car. Once at Marie's home, Claire appears detached as she gazes out the window, but Mary gently leads her to the bathroom. There, Claire sinks into the bathtub, overcome with sorrow as her attempts to regain control over her life continue to falter. After her bath, Claire joins Marie in the living room, where Marie offers words of wisdom, advising Claire not to let her experiences tarnish her beauty. She reminds Claire that experiencing hardship doesn't define one's character. Moved by Marie's understanding, Claire opens up about her struggles, while Marie shares her own tragic experience of losing her daughter to meningitis, fostering a sense of empathy and connection between them. Spiraling into substance abuse, Claire's struggles ultimately drive her husband and son to leave her. A woman offers her shelter for the night, urging Claire to visit anytime and even inscribing her contact information on Claire's arm before parting ways. Despite this gesture of care, Claire reaches a breaking point that evening, resulting in firefighters breaking down her door after she attempts to poison herself, sparking a fire in her apartment. Meanwhile, Claire's father is occupied with his new partner, Christine, in the bathroom. Christine questions if he has informed Claire about their relationship, but he admits to being unable to find the right moment. Unbeknownst to them, Claire awakens in the hospital, panicked and attempting to flee. She is apprehended by medical staff and sedated, drifting into a troubled dream where she is dragged underwater while swimming in a pool. Upon awakening, her attending psychiatrist informs her of her father's visit, but Claire adamantly refuses to see him, leading the doctor to intervene and ask her father to leave. Later, at a restaurant, Claire's father vents to Marty about being asked to leave the hospital. Marty suggests that Claire is likely in shock and believes her father is upset with her. During a heated exchange, the father insists he never yelled at Claire and always trusted her. Marty confronts him about his emotional distance from Claire, particularly after their mother's death, accusing him of being afraid of her. Refusing to acknowledge his shortcomings, the father brushes past Marty to serve food. Unyielding, Marty follows him, asserting his belief that their father is intimidated by Claire. Frustrated by his father's inaction, Marty demands the car keys and drives to the hospital to retrieve Claire against the advice of her attending doctor. As they depart, Claire confesses that she didn't truly want to end her life, but merely desired rest. Touched by her vulnerability, Marty takes her to the beach, a place of fond memories from their childhood. They play together before heading to a restaurant where they engage in a game of foosball. As Claire prepares to leave, Marty reveals that he contacted the number on her arm and spoke to Marie, suggesting she stay the night with her. Claire agrees, and at Marie's house, they assist in setting up their sleeping arrangements. During dinner, Marie presents Claire with a gift, and Marty belatedly wishes her a happy birthday. Excitedly opening the gift, Claire's joy quickly turns to anguish upon discovering it's a camera, triggering memories of the traumatic event. Claire flees, and although Marty tries to follow, Marie advises him to give her space. Claire eventually returns, finding solace in Marie's presence and opting to sleep on the couch with her nearby. In the following days, Claire returns to work, dismissing her hospitalization as merely falling asleep while smoking when questioned by Louis. He informs her of their boss recommending her as a model for a video project, to which she initially hesitates but ultimately agrees, intrigued by the opportunity for something new. At the studio, she shares her photo samples with her co-worker, and as things turn intimate between them, Claire hesitates, which Louis keenly observes. After Claire declines to proceed, Louis respectfully buttons up her shirt and offers to take her home. In the following days, Claire continues to spend time with Louis, finding solace and security in his company, particularly after sharing a meal together. She also visits Marty at their new shop, where he compliments her appearance, and they celebrate her success with Louis accepting her photos. Despite her growing closeness with Louis, Claire maintains her boundaries, as evidenced by her reluctance to engage in anything passionate during their encounters. Louis respects her decision, assuring her they have time, which delights Claire and prompts her to confide in Marie about him. When Marie teasingly asks if Claire is in love, Claire admits uncertainty, prompting Marie to playfully suggest further investigation. Despite their relationship, Claire faces rejection when she submits new photos to Louis, who encourages her to strive for better. Disheartened, she decides against visiting her father's restaurant that night, avoiding a confrontation after feeling rejected. In the morning, Claire meets Issa at the venue of her singing audition, where she apologizes for her recent absence and observes as her friend performs for the judges. Witnessing Issa take a bold step toward her dreams prompts a realization in Claire, prompting her to rush to Louis' place, where she takes his hand, indicating her readiness. Before they proceed, Louis stresses the importance of Claire being fully present, both mentally and physically, stating he won't engage with her otherwise. Claire questions her inability to stop thinking about him, to which he encourages her to trust him. As they engage intimately, Louis fulfills that trust, leaving Claire feeling secure and loved. Later that evening, Claire visits her father's restaurant for the first time in a while. As they converse, her father fondly recalls his adoration for her during her childhood. Claire inquires why he never discusses her mother, to which he reveals that Claire greatly resembles her. This prompts Claire to confront her feelings of abandonment after her mother's death, expressing that she felt like she lost her father too. In response, her father defends himself, claiming he lost everything when their mother died. Claire challenges this assertion, reminding him of his responsibility to his living children. Despite his claims of support and fear for her well-being, Claire demands a father who can defend and protect her when she's in trouble. This leads her to finally open up about the tragic events of that fateful night. For the first time, Claire admits to feeling ashamed, believing she couldn't trust anyone anymore. Upon hearing this, her father provides comfort, and they decide to report the traumatic event. He reflects on how it took a tragic event to finally open up to each other. Moved by their reconciliation, her father asks if she'll accept Christine. Claire smiles, expressing that if her mother agrees, she will too. The following day, Claire steps out into the streets with a newfound sense of joy as her journey of healing commences. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.